Declamations are both a long tradition here at Transfiguration and also within education itself. Declamations are something where a student has to go out and choose a text or a speech which they consider important or excellent, and they have to discover what the meaning is within that text, and then they have to turn around and give that text or speech to others and do so in a convincing way. This year we had all of the 7th and 8th graders give declamations, and we're proud to present the top 3 declamations. Within the top 3 declamations, 2 of them come from speeches given by Winston Churchill, and the last is a speech that was given by Martin Luther King. Interestingly enough, the 2 that come from Winston Churchill kind of bookend his career as the Prime Minister of England during World War II. The first is when he actually is putting together his government. All of Europe is falling, and he knows that if Britain falls, basically all of Europe will have fallen and be under the rule of Hitler. So he knows that it's a dark future. He knows it's going to be a lot of work, and as a matter of fact, he tells his people that all he has to offer is blood, tears, toil, and sweat. But he still needs them to fight. As a matter of fact, at one point in time, he tells the people that even if the British Isles themselves fall, the people that are within the British Empire, but kind of outside of the British Isles themselves, will need to continue to fight. That's a pretty gloomy outlook, but he still needs those people to fight. The second, the second declamation by Winston Churchill, or the second speech given by him, is actually at the end, VE Day, or Victory in Europe Day. And he's so proud of his people, and he wants them to feel that. But despite the loss of life, and despite the loss of their way of life, and despite all the efforts that they've given, they need to keep fighting, because the Pacific Rim, the Pacific Theater, that fight continues. So although they would have liked to stop fighting, they still need to fight. The last declamation by Martin Luther King is his I Have a Dream speech. And of course, Martin Luther King was a genius when it came to rhetorical presentation. He was able to take our founding fathers' ideals and tie them to beautiful images. And of course, one of my favorite images is when he talks about a little black boy and a little black girl holding the hands of a little white girl and a little white boy, where they'll be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. So we are so proud of all of our 7th and 8th graders who gave declamations, but in particular of these 3. So please enjoy.
My name is Hannah Lamb, and today I'm going to be presenting Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, I Have a Dream. This speech was spoken at the March in Washington on August 28, 1963. With this speech, he was trying to invoke equality, freedom, and justice for all minorities. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that honor and suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair, I say to you today, my friends. And so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day, right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope, and this is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
Is the Winston Churchill Victory in Europe Day speech. Perseverance seems like a common virtue. It's just going when the going gets tough. But sometimes the moments when we need perseverance the most are the ones where we've just succeeded and all we really want to do is rest. This speech was addressed by Winston Churchill on May 8th, 1945, one day after the Nazis surrendered and all of Europe was freed. But even though they had finally been rewarded for all those long months of sacrifice and effort, they weren't done because Japan had not yet surrendered, and unless she was stopped, World War II would never end. My dear friends, this is your hour. This is not a victory of a party or of any class. It's a victory of the great British nation as a whole. We were the first in this ancient island to draw the sword against tyranny. And after a while, we were left all alone against the most tremendous military power that has been seen. We were all alone for a whole year. There we stood alone. Did anyone want to give in? Were we downhearted? The lights went out and the bombs came down, but every man, woman, and child in the country had no thought of quitting the struggle. London can take it. So we came back, after long months, from the jaws of death, out of the mouth of hell, while all the world wondered, when shall the reputation and faith of this generation of English men and women fail? I say that in the long years to come, not only will the people of this island, but of the world, wherever the bird of freedom chirps in human hearts, look back to what we've done, and they will say, do not despair, do not yield to violence and tyranny, march straight forward and die if need be, unconquered. Now we have emerged from one deadly struggle. A terrible foe has been cast on the ground and waits our judgment and our mercy. But there is another foe who occupies large portions of the British Empire, a foe stained with cruelty and greed. The Japanese. I rejoice we can all take a night off today and another day tomorrow. Tomorrow, our great Russian allies will also be celebrating victory, and after that, we must begin the task of rebuilding our hearth and homes, doing our utmost to make this country a land in which all have a chance, a land in which all have a duty. And we must turn ourselves to fulfill our duty to our own countrymen and to our gallant allies of the United States who are so foully and treacherously attacked by Japan. We will go hand in hand with them. And even if it is a hard struggle, we will not be the ones who will fail. The Germans are still in places resisting the Russian troops, but should they continue to do so after midnight, they will, of course, deprive themselves of the protection of the laws of war and will be attacked from all quarters by the Allied troops. It is not surprising that on such long fronts, and in the existing disorder of the enemy, that the orders of the German High Command should not, in every case, be obeyed immediately. This does not, in our opinion, with the best military advice at our disposal, constitute any reason for withholding from the nation the facts communicated to us by General Eisenhower of the unconditional surrender already signed at Reims. Nor should it prevent us from celebrating today and tomorrow as Victory in Europe Days. Today, perhaps, we shall think mostly of ourselves. Tomorrow, we shall pay particular tribute to our Russian comrades, whose prowess in the field has been one of the grand contributions to the general victory. The German war is therefore at an end. After years of intense preparation, Germany hurled herself upon Poland at the beginning of September 1939. And in pursuance of her guarantee to Poland, and in agreement with the French Republic, Great Britain, the British Empire, and Commonwealth of Nations declared war upon this foul aggression. After gallant France had been struck down, We, from this island and from our united empire, maintained the struggle single-handed for a whole year, until we were joined by the military might of Soviet Russia, and later by the overwhelming power and resources of the United States of America. Finally, almost the whole world was combined against the evildoers who are now prostrate before us. Our gratitude to our splendid allies goes forth from all our hearts, in this island and throughout the British Empire. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing, but let us not forget for a moment the toil and efforts that lie ahead. Japan, with all her treachery and greed, remains unsubdued. The injury she's inflicted upon Great Britain, the United States, and other countries, and her detestable cruelties call for justice and retribution. We must now devote all our strength and resources to the completion of our task, both at home and abroad. Advance Britannia, long live the cause of freedom, God save the King.
I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. This phrase was spoken in Winston Churchill's famous blood, toil, tears, and sweat speech. This speech was given on May 13, 1940 at the House of Commons. He gives this speech to the British people, and he is begging them to be courageous and persevere. Europe was falling, and he needed them to get up and keep fighting, even though no one was going to help them. This speech engenders courage. Churchill was telling the British to stand and fight, even though the idea of giving up was more appealing and enticingly easy. On Friday evening last, I received His Majesty's commission to form a new administration. It is the evident wish and will of Parliament that this should be conceived on the broadest possible basis and that it should include all parties, both those who supported the late government and also the parties of the opposition. I've completed the most important part of this task. A war cabinet has been formed of 5 members, representing with the opposition Liberals the unity of the nation. The 3 party leaders have agreed to serve either in the war cabinet or in high executive office. The 3 fighting services have been filled. It was necessary that this should be done in one single day on account of the extreme urgency and rigor of events. A number of other positions, key positions, were filled yesterday, and I'm submitting a further list to His Majesty tonight. I hope to complete the appointment of the principal ministers during tomorrow. The appointment of the other ministers usually takes a little longer, but I trust that when Parliament meets again, this part of my task will be completed and the administration will be complete in all respects. I considered it in the public interest to suggest that the House should be summoned to meet today. Mr. Speaker agreed and took the necessary steps in accordance with the powers conferred upon him by the resolution of the House. At the end of the proceedings today, the adjournment of the House will be proposed until Tuesday, 21st May, with, of course, provision for earlier meeting if need be. The business to be considered during that week will be notified to members at the earliest opportunity. I now invite the House, by the motion which stands in my name, to record its approval of the steps taken and to declare its confidence in the new government. To form an administration of this scale and complexity is a serious undertaking in itself. But it must be remembered that we are in the preliminary stage of one of the greatest battles in history, that we are in action in many other points in Norway and in Holland, that the air battle is continuous, and that many preparations, such as have been indicated by my honorable friend below the gangway, have to be made here at home. In this crisis, I hope I may be pardoned if I do not address the House at any length today. I hope any of my friends and colleagues or former colleagues who have been affected by this political reconstruction will make allowance, all allowance, for any lack of ceremony with which it has been necessary to act. I would say to the House, as I said to those who have joined this government, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. We have before us an ordeal of the most grievous kind. We have before us many, many long months of struggle and of suffering. You ask, what is our policy? I can say it is to wage war by sea, land, and air, with all our might and with all the strength that God can give us to wage war against a monstrous tyranny, never surpassed in the dark, lamentable catalog of human crime. That is our policy. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word. It is victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory however long and hard the road may be, for without victory, there is no survival. Let that be realized. No survival for the British Empire. No survival for all that the British Empire stood for. No survival for the urge and impulse of the ages that mankind will move forward towards its goal. But I take up my task with buoyancy and hope. I feel sure that our cause will not be suffered to fail among men. I feel entitled to claim the aid of all. And I say, come then, let us go forward together with our united strength.
All right. After a long session of adding, we needed Ms. Weingarts to help. We have a tie for second place.
And that's for real. That's how the math came out. That's for real.
So our second place winners are Frankie Chastik and Hannah Lamb. And our first place winner, Declamations 2021 at Transfiguration, is Molly Monahan.